Hello and welcome to Rare Cuts Media Society, the podcast that looks at hidden media gems, knows all the answers, and changes the questions. With your host, as always, I'm Andrew Jagoda, and with me we've got Mike Ross. How are you today, Mike?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions, and we'll have a lot of different answers, and
That's right.
we'll see.
And Rob Lachik, how are you today, Rob?
I'm doing very well. I am very excited to keep talking about my favorite heel wrestler because this is my theme and this is my favorite set of picks. Even if the movies stink, I still love talking about them.
And of course, we've got Eric Cathorn. How are you today, Eric?
Pretty good. I'm going to say we're trying to make lemons out of Rob's lemonade here today.
Oh,
Yeah, I remember
I said it backwards. Lemonade out of Rob's lemon today.
You just go to war with a man with a machine gun.
I remember I used to work at a juice factory, so it has all sorts of circles there.
Yes. And I said it backwards. The first time. I didn't say it backwards now.
And we'll stick with Eric since it is his pick this month. So take it away, Eric.
All right. So yes, Rob had previously taken the reins of the show, and maybe will continue to take the reins of the show as he is in the lead currently in this round too. He's going to try to go for the double on this one, but he picked that theme of Rowdy Roddy Piper, and then we all had to go to we all went with hell to Frogtown, and we put on our special glasses to help us see the aliens who live while we sleep, unknowing how the world works. But we never really got to meet the man behind those characters in those B movies. So today we're gonna get to know the real Roddy Piper, not necessarily the kilt wearing WWE star. Well, I mean, maybe that is the real Roddy Piper. Today we're going to discuss the documentary about the real Roddy Piper, A&E's biography, WWE Legends, Rowdy Roddy Piper. That's the whole title. This might be the longest official title of a project picked for Rare Cuts. So that's a record maybe. So
until we do Buckaroo Banzai.
all the subtitles on that one. We will have to do that one day. So yeah, maybe that's a theme of things we should have picked, but we haven't yet. But yes, so this is that A&E biography of Rowdy Roddy Piper. And before we get into the biography, I just want to ask that question of how much did you guys know about Roddy Piper, the man, before watching this documentary? Let's start with Rob, because he's the one who picked it.
So I knew very little. The only personal thing I knew about him was when he was on the Rich Eisen show right before he passed, which I'm sure we'll get into later. That was really the only personal thing I knew about Roddy Piper. Other than that, it was him being the crazy, obnoxious heel, fighting Hulk Hogan, Mr. T, the Hammer Valentine, all those characters. And
all right, so you picked it, but you didn't know much about the guy. What about you, Andrew and Mike? Whoever wants to take it next.
So I had known him from being a kid when he fought Hogan and Mr. T. That was my biggest thing. And then I did remember retroactively when I was watching this about the Rich Eisen show interview, I said, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." But other than that, I mean, just the heel fill-in role, the kilts. Not a lot on the personal side of his life, though.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna say 100%. I knew nothing about this man, so I love a good documentary, and I'm happy that you selected this because I learned a lot. And I knew a lot about other wrestlers, and a lot of the other wrestlers are even featured in the documentary. And Like, for one, if anyone's interested in an old wrestling card,
Oh,
got Bret the Hitman Hart,
That's his
fancy.
cousin.
potential
Right.
cousin.
Right. Yeah.
And it also featured someone I really hate, but I have a signed card from him. So if anyone out there is interested,
Good luck
send a
with that.
self-addressed sealed stamp envelope. No, or unsealed stamp. Don't send a sealed. I'm saying stuff backwards today. What is happening?
yeah. But
Oh
I
man.
mean, I know a lot about other wrestlers. I didn't know anything about Roddy Piper, and it's a shame that I didn't.
Yeah, I'm with all of you. I think he's kind of one of those guys that he is Rowdy Roddy Piper to so many of us that we haven't really thought of him as anyone else or like thought to dive into his story. So I thought this was a cool opportunity, even if I had ulterior motives for picking this one, but more on that later. And so with that in mind, like just kind of having watched the whole documentary and learning more about him now, I wanted to ask you guys each, if it was there like something, it could be something small, it could be something big, but is there something from this documentary that kind of stuck with you about Roddy Piper? It could even be like his, you know, like he had that sweet, like Panther, I think, t-shirt, or like a Cougar t-shirt or whatever that was.
Yeah.
It could be something as small as that, or it could be about like his impact on his family life, or you know, like anything that stuck with you about Roddy Piper. Let's go with Andrew first on this one. I'm gonna kick it to you.
For me, it was seeing how rough he had it when he was starting out. You know, living on the streets and having to fight his way for everything. You know, I mean, looking at him, you could tell that he had a rough point at some time in his life because he was kind of beat up. Looking even early in his career, he wasn't the full-on pretty boy. But just to hear all of that was pretty surprising.
I will say the thing that stuck with me the most was similar to Andrew. His childhood, where he started, he was living on the streets. That was definitely what stuck with me the most. The other thing that stuck with me, and it came out at the end when he was nearing his death in 2015. They never really said it, but when they talked about how he would go like to a hotel and he would sit in the room like in the dark. I mean, I'm sure he's buried or he was cremated. They can't do anything now, but he probably had CTE, like a lot of the football players, and I think football players very commonly. I'm sure a lot of the wrestlers did. Chris Benoit, I think, did as well. So that could have been that was something that kind of stuck with me because they never really talked about it, but it's become like such a big topic in a lot of the physical sports like that. Definitely kind of sad because that Rich Eisen interview he was a shell of himself. I mean, that was his biggest thing, right? His gift of gab. And for that to kind of be gone at that point of his life was pretty sad. But that was the one thing that I took away that was probably a bit of a downer, but something that really stuck with me after watching it.
Did you watch that whole interview? I mean, I gotta ask.
I watched pieces of it, but I did not
Okay.
watch the whole thing.
Okay, because it was hard for me to tell if he did seem off in that interview,
Yeah.
like he wasn't on his A game for sure. But also, where I struggled with that is like the documentary takes snippets, right, from the interview, but the overall context of that conversation was in regards to Hulk Hogan and his racist comments. And I think he was struggling to formulate how to respond because I think in his head still he's trying to do what's probably going to be best for his family, but also having whatever, mental or other breakdown that he's going through, weighing on him too, and he has too many things going on, can't formulate the thought. And so I was like, I mean, I could see how he could be struggling through that.
Certainly,
because he was someone who was not afraid to speak out against the organizations. But I don't know. I'll give my opinion about other stuff later. But the thing that stuck out to me is something that I believe that most of the great professional wrestlers are good at, and that is, we're going to do what is best, or what is going to be the most entertaining for the crowd. And so hearing like how he would antagonize, and it's similar to other wrestlers like Mick Foley, who are willing to do things that are going to make it, really worthwhile for the people watching, really exciting, get them just really wrapped up in it all. And so like that whole segment where he said he had this feud going on with the Guerrero family, and ultimately, he says to a largely Hispanic audience that he's going to, as an apology, perform the Mexican national anthem. And he knew what he was doing. He knew the risk involved, but he did it because he knew that it was going to get a pop, and it was going to be something that people are going to remember. And he played La Cucaracha on the bagpipes. And they have a really good in-depth discussion about how people were throwing chairs, and he was like, "This is how I'm gonna die."
He knew he was setting that room on fire for himself. But it's like you said, it's like for the show. Like he knew that was going to get a rise out of everyone. That's we were going kind of downer with the first two, and then Mike brought us a wrestling in the ring moment. But I think what if we go back for a second to talk about, because I mean, there was a lot that stuck with me from like the things that you guys were talking about, that like those kind of moments. Like I do love how they would highlight moments like that when he played La Cucaracha. But like also I love that there was a moment too where his daughter talked about how she got the wrestlers tour of LA, which I thought was funny, because he did work so hard to like shelter his family from the wrestling world, and then like when he brings his daughter to LA, he's like, I slept in the in that thing, and there's a guy outside my window, and someone got murdered over there, and like all these like horrible like Skid Row kind of stories, which is kind of, it was just kind of a crazy juxtaposition that kind of I keep thinking about that. But I want to go back to like when we were talking about how like they didn't get into like maybe what was happening in some of those larger issues. And I want to get into this next question, which is like, was there anything that you thought was missing from this documentary? That you like, maybe you knew a little something, or like you wish they would have focused on something a little bit more that they maybe skimmed over, or something like that. Like maybe it was like the CT injury kind of thing, or what have you.
I don't know what was left out, because you're kind of relying upon someone to provide that information to you. And unless he had gone to appointments and talked about it with someone else, what he was going through, we don't have that information really. And so I felt, for me personally, the documentary is skewed, right? Because you got Hogan in there, you got Vince McMahon in there, and the family is being very polite and trying to stay relatively positive for the most part. And they kind of skim over the whole him talking about his friends and people he's worked with dying, and just kind of like gloss over like, well, what are you doing? And like they're speaking for him after the fact, saying, oh yeah, my dad said that he knew what they were signing up for. And so it felt more like they just want to kind of bury that part. Like they don't want to have that be the narrative. Like, did he have CT? Well, let's not talk about that. He had demons. He had his own personal demons, and some days were better than others. But let's not talk about any of the mental or brain damage he might have sustained through the career. And let's not really talk or highlight any of the wrestlers that he was referring to that have passed away at young ages. And so I felt like there was somewhat of a disservice to him in the documentary to kind of, let's just keep going. Let's kind of skirt by this and make it fun.
So it kind of to me sounds like you're saying, and this might be a profound statement to go after. So good luck, Andrew and Rob. But the thing that was missing was Roddy Piper, his own voice. Rob, what was that? What do you think was missing from this documentary? What would you want? What would you wanted to have seen or want more of?
So I was hoping to see, well, maybe that's true. And actually, maybe you're onto something, because I was hoping to get more. They talked about his childhood a little bit. I kind of wish they would have went a little bit deeper, but they probably couldn't, because they probably tried to tease it out of him. And he probably didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So I think that's, so some of those, like where you said, Eric, about taking his daughter around LA, like, oh, I slept in that alley and all those things, like go into that even further, right? Like talk about things, like ask, like, how did you get there? What,
Right.
all those kind of things. They really didn't go too much into that, but it could have been just, he didn't want to talk about it, which is understandable.
It would have turned into, yeah, that's where I slept on the street. And then there was this group of people that had sunglasses.
I seen
there
that
was
one.
a church.
They were playing records. There's no choir. No.
which speaking of that brings me to what surprised me was left out, which was also vindicating, because they left out the majority of his acting career except for They Live.
The one you picked.
Oh.
I got to say one thing.
And yet I have a lower score than Frogtown.
I will say that justifies the poor rarity scores. No.
They literally said that, oh, he started and he went into They Live, skipping over Frogtown.
I know that this is unorthodox, and you guys can reject it if you want, but I just want to say, after I watched the documentary, I really wanted to give They Live an additional point in enjoyment. I'm just saying. Because now it's like I have more.
See, then Rob's going to take a point away.
No altering scores now.
Okay.
No.
But it definitely changed how I felt about They Live after seeing the documentary.
But I mean, to me, it was just like, from a Rowdy point of view, it's like, okay, well, you stepped away from what you've been doing for so long because you wanted to do this other thing. Could we at least focus a little bit on that? And really, it was just like, he did They Live, then he came back to wrestling. And it skips over a lot of in between there too. So
yeah, I think I'm kind of on the same page as you, Andrew, and I was wondering what like I would think is missing. In that, like, we have, because we're doing the research to choose good picks for our choices for this theme. It's like we've looked at the filmography of Roddy Piper. We've kind of skimmed through things. We've looked through all of the stuff that he's done for years and years, and it's like he didn't stop acting. Like, the documentary almost makes it look like he stopped acting. Like, he did a movie and it was semi-successful, and then he stopped.
Also, I want to bring up one extra thing.
Yeah,
is that they portray the whole like Hogan saving Cyndi Lauper thing like it's this big feud. I mean, obviously it was staged, because what did Cyndi Lauper do? She had Rowdy Roddy Piper in the music video for The Goonies Are Good Enough, along with Lou Albano, of course, and
now,
Iron Sheik.
Let's talk about that for a second, because there's like the, and I some people call it, what is it, kayfabe or kayfob, I don't know which way you say it, but like that's the whole like wrestling's fake, but it's not fake thing. Like you don't talk about it. And I just talked about it. God, come on. No, but anyways, like that whole thing in this documentary, I feel like they sometimes would like hint at that this is a scripted show of things. And then sometimes they would like totally just be like, no, the wrestling's real. They never came out and said the wrestling's real, but they like tried to like skirt that line of like how real and how planned it is.
Hogan had pretty much fessed up to it. It's like, well, people didn't really know what was going on at the time, and you know, we had cops in the ring, and we were asked beforehand, do we tell the cops about what's going on beforehand so that they know? No, don't tell them anything, because that was the time when we were trying to just protect our business. So he's pretty much just flat out saying it. You know, it's scripted. This is how it is. Yeah, I don't like Hogan. I'm just gonna keep saying it.
Every time you use him as an example or he comes up, that you're just like, I'll talk about him for a second, but let me put this disclaimer out.
Well, I mean, he's like referring to Mr. T as kind of cagey and talking to himself in third person. It's like, yeah, and you say brother after every other word. So
I will say the director did a good job of like immediately inserting a clip of Mr. T calling himself out in third person immediately after.
Mr. T ain't no powder puff.
Which, to speak to the brother thing, Roddy Piper had his share of brothers first. So my next question is, what came first, the Piper brother or the Hogan brother?
Honestly, I would have to say it's probably Piper, right? I mean, I think that at that time period, based on what they're showing us and our own personal knowledge, it really seemed like wrestling was more like, here's a spectacle, watch them have their battle. But he's what kind of started bringing that voice and writing like scripts and stories, and that's what changed it. I mean, Hogan initially was just like, hey, look at this big guy with his huge pythons, and yeah.
Got the right, the 24-inch pythons.
And let's be honest. I mean, Piper was much better at his speaking roles than Hogan ever was. Well, I'm just going to keep digging in at him. I hope you're watching.
It is interesting you say that, though, Mike, because, and I'm trying to find the quote, but Ric Flair during the Hall of Fame where Rowdy Piper was inducted, is right. He did he called him the most gifted entertainer in the history of professional wrestling. So to what you're saying, not saying he's the best wrestler, not saying he's the biggest physique, but he changed it as it's not just two guys battling or a tag team match, guys rough and tough, right? Punching. He was an entertainer.
He created the male soap opera.
Yeah. I mean, arguably, yes.
Putting dog collar and chains and cakes. I mean, come on. Genius.
Yeah.
Straight out of a telenovela.
He was definitely that piece of the puzzle, because like it was kind of cool too in that like you got the kind of the history of WWE through the perspective of like Piper's career, because like he came up from before it was even a thing, and it was like everyone moving around. I remember too, like we got really into this series. It was, I think it's been a few years since it was on, but like Young Rock had some of this time period too, with like the formulation of the WWE in one of its timelines, and it was like, it's kind of cool to see that come together, because like as a kid when Roddy Piper was like in the ring, it was like, no, these guys have been here forever, but like forever was like 10 years. Like, you know what I mean? It like wasn't that long since all this became as big as it was. So it's like, it was kind of cool to see that come together. And it's like, no, he had the piece of the puzzle to make that to make it like a good ongoing TV series because of like, what he would bring to the storylines. So I think that he is one of the cornerstones of wrestling on TV.
It was all the kilt.
Yeah, right.
All
The
kilt.
kilt. Well, and the thing that shocked, I'll go back this too. I didn't necessarily stick with me, but it shocked me is that like the bagpipes was his real thing in real life. Like that was.
Yeah, no, I did not know that.
Yeah.
So that was exciting to see him actually playing and being really enthusiastic about it, and even, starting to teach his own kids how to play the bagpipes. So
That was pretty cool. All right. So we talked a little bit about the content of the documentary, but I kind of want to get into where this documentary sits in like the world of documentary movies. So I think we have to talk about A&E and biography. And, maybe you remember that old SNL skit with wasn't that Will Ferrell? This is biography. And he would always do the biography. I can't remember the guy's name. Anyway, so A&E's biography is pretty iconic, and I may have just shot myself in the foot with that statement because we're talking about rarity today. But A&E's biography it's cable TV iconic. Let's be honest. Like A&E's biography. It started in the late 60s in syndication, and it was meant to highlight the lives and accomplishments of like notable people in like a quick little television format. I kind of think of like, PBS documentaries and things like that. And then in the 80s, when cable was becoming more prominent, it moved to cable and ended up on A&E. So it wasn't originally on A&E because A&E didn't exist until the 80s, but in the 80s it moved over to the A&E network as it kind of like the cornerstone program of the network. And since then, pretty much it's been A&E's biography. Like A&E and biography are pretty synonymous. In fact, A&E kind of eventually pivoted into its own channel because they have done a lot of biographies in the past. So A&E, let's talk about A&E real quick because it started as a joint venture into the cable market between Hearst and the Walt Disney Company.
I knew it. I knew
Yep.
it.
So this is actually the only Disney Roddy Piper thing I can find. But it also worked out well because we got to learn a little bit about the dude, the man, Rowdy Roddy Piper. So Disney still owns a good chunk of A&E today. That actually Hearst and Disney own. I'm gonna just do it. They own A&E together. They own Lifetime together, and they own ESPN together because Hearst still has a little chunk of ESPN. So this is my, my twisted way of picking a Disney Roddy Piper media thing that I could find. But I want to get into these questions, which I want to talk about the documentary itself. So all of that aside, the Disney stuff and me duping you into watching a Disney movie, even though you didn't know it was a Disney movie. How familiar are you with biography or like other TV made for TV documentary series, like Behind the Music or something like that?
I mean, I remember watching a lot of Behind the Music over at your house on VH1, and I have to say I haven't really seen a lot of A&E biographies because I never had cable television. But now with like YouTube, I probably have watched some without even knowing because they have so many just on there. And I will say that, I love things like American Experience and things like that on PBS. But I watched this particular documentary, I think 4 or 5 times.
For real?
Yeah.
Dang. Repeat watches.
But then I found one that I liked even more, and that was the biography they did for Mick Foley. And it goes back to someone who was a professional wrestler who did whatever it took to make the audience feel satisfied, even at the expense of their own health. So pretty similar, but No, I was like, oh man, I'm going to end up going down a rabbit hole now of A&E wrestling biographies.
There's a ton, and most of them
Yeah.
are free streaming out there, so go for it.
So my favorite TV documentary series, and it's sports related, is 30 for 30, which is also at ESPN. So Eric, you can soak in the glory of the Disney connection there. But that's probably my favorite documentary series. I mean, it's sports related. There's been so many good ones on there, between the Chicago Bears '85 only Super Bowl season. Some of the one with who's the guy who went to do Christian Leitner? I think there was a 30 for 30. That was a really good one. I mean, there were just so many good ones. And to keep it in the world of wrestling, I highly recommend watching the Ric Flair 30 for 30. It is phenomenal. And there's also another one I'll give a really good call out to watch. And I've mentioned it to you all. I don't know if it was on the last podcast or side conversations, is the Andre the Giant HBO documentary. That if you watch both of them, but you got to start with the Andre one. It is so good. I'll just give you an idea how good it is. That they go on in that documentary, like talking about his life, what he was as a person. They go on maybe like a 2-minute tangent where they talk about Andre the Giant's love of flatulence. And it is everything you possibly could have hoped for and more. That's all I will say. I highly recommend watching it. You will thank me after you watch it. But that's just like a 2-minute thing they talk about. And 2 minutes is
Sure.
they could go further.
I mean, that's good.
But it's a great documentary. Check it out.
Nice.
So for me, I mean, you guys know this about me. Not huge on documentaries, biographies, but the thing that I love is, and it's ironic I say that because it's I love the '80s, that kind of documentary, whatever you want to call it.
I'd say so.
Yeah, I love when they go into that kind of style of documentary. And it's nice and quick too, so it's very, very like punchy. It's not like a 2-hour, let's beat this thing to death. It's like, okay, here's an episode here, and here's an episode there.
Yeah. No, I totally forgot about those until you brought them up, and now I want to watch them again because those were great. And like that's like as Mike was saying, like he watched a lot of Behind the Music with me. That's why I mentioned it at first. Like that was my thing, but no, those I love the '80s, I love the '90s. They did I love the '70s, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just keep on. I'm just gonna keep listing decades for a minute. No, but the like
the
that
Roaring
series.
20s.
Right, the Roaring 20s, 100 years ago. But that was a great series, and that one, I think that one in like Behind the Music and biography, they, like you pointed out, they were quick, they were snappy. There's a formula to those, and there is actually a formula to biography and Behind the Music. Because they are those made for TV ones, they have to package them into, a round TV number, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, something like that. So with what we've got here, all right, I was saying, yeah, so like the formula that those follow, like the TV formula, I kind of want to like, does that detract from these, or does that change the way you feel about them? And I'm going to be interested too to hear from you, Mike, because you watched another A&E, not just A&E biography, but A&E WWE biography from this like sub series with this one. But like, how does this stack up to those other documentaries? And then like Rob too, you're talking about your 30 for 30 Ric Flair, like 30 for 30 Ric Flair versus Roddy Piper's biography. Like I want to hear about those ones too, but like how is it stacked up against the other documentaries that you guys have seen in the past? Like does Does it punch above its weight? Does it wrestle above its weight? Is it going for heavyweight, intercontinental, champ? What weight class we in here with a biography documentary? Let's stack them up. Let's see who wins.
This one's hard. The Roddy Piper one is hard because a lot of it was pulled together from other interviews that he had done prior. And so this really feels like kind of the post-mortem of his life. And everyone is mostly trying to stay positive and look at, the best of times. And so again, for me, the hardest part was the way they tried to kind of, it felt like it was just leaving out details because they didn't want to get into it. They didn't want to talk about certain topics. And so that was detracting to me because it's like, oh, there's more to this story and we're not getting it because unfortunately Roddy's not here to give it. Mm-hmm. And like the best example of this I have, and it was very frustrating for me. Each time I watched it, we get to that part, I'd be like, oh my God, he's gonna say it because I know he says it because I've watched it so many times now. And it was Hulk Hogan when he's talking. No. Yeah. He's talking about WrestleMania, the whole Mr. T, Cyndi Lauper feud that was going on, and how he's very critical of how Roddy wouldn't listen to him. And he's like, I called him up one day and I told him, you could have been the richest guy here. And he's like, oh yeah, no, you're right. And I wish you would have told me. Well, you wouldn't talk to me. And it's like, that kind of thing bugs me in a documentary, a biography specifically, because we cannot fact check that. We just have to say, that's what he said.
Are you saying Hulk Hogan is a liar?
Yes.
I could have told you Mike was saying that before you even asked that question.
I wanted it to be said on tape here, if you will.
He's going to come for me now,
Coming for you. Liar, pants on fire.
Because anytime you really hear other wrestlers who have worked with Hogan talk about him, it's not usually in a good light. Most of them are pretty negative. And even Roddy was pretty negative about Hogan. And so for him to say that, I think is undercutting Roddy's memory and making him think that, trying to make people feel like, oh, well, he really would have just done it all for the money too. And he didn't really care about his pride. And it's like, no, he had things that he valued in his career and things that he was willing to do and things that he was willing not to do because he thought it was not proper and was kind of gimmicky and something he didn't want to do. So, and Hogan just really gets under my skin because, if you think... So don't ever pick another one of his movies, Rob.
No, I did not pick Hulk Hogan. That was Jagoda.
Oh, that was you.
The next theme is the films of Hulk Hogan.
Oh, God. Because, you hear about Jesse Ventura and other guys talking about how they were trying to find a way to take care of their health, and because they were independent contractors, but Vince McMahon owned everything. So how are they really considered contractors when they really can't go anywhere else? And try to form a union, and he busted it. And Hogan was the one that ratted him out. And so let's imagine a world where in the 80s, wrestlers get protections, they get health care. Maybe Piper would have been alive today because of that. But you have scumbags like Hogan, making sure that he does what's best for himself so that he can make the most money. He doesn't care about Piper. He doesn't care about anyone but him. So,
welcome to the Hulk Hogan Bash-a-thon here, starring Mike Ross.
I'm sorry.
You just tanked my ratings for the Suburban Commando episode of this podcast. Right down the toilet, right? Just gone.
I was gonna say Mike versus Hulk Hogan was almost as long as that fight scene in They Live. No,
but circling back around, compared to the documentary with Mick Foley, I love Mick Foley. He is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, but also he is a genuine, good human being. He's very kind, and so seeing him in the documentary, seeing what he put himself through, all so that fans would think that they got their money's worth, and hearing his side of it in the documentary, because he's throughout the whole thing. He's alive. He can tell the story better than anyone. It felt less biased, and my enjoyment was actually greater for that documentary.
Gotcha. Now, did it have any was there any formulaic stuff between the two that you were like, oh yeah, this is following the same?
Yeah, definitely. In terms of this is how I started out. This is how I got into things initially. Because Roddy Piper was definitely, he was on his own most of the time. But Mick Foley came from a family that, they got along, and he could live with his parents, and they weren't fighting. And actually, one of the only things that he could really have conversations or do with his father was watching wrestling on TV. And Mick Foley kind of goes through, this is how I got started. I was a wrestler in high school, and I wrestled with Kevin James, the comedian from King of Queens. They were on the same wrestling team.
That's awesome.
and so, but yeah, you get the same kind of arc, right? Where it's this is me starting out. This is me trying to do something different or above what I was doing. I'm trying to make it in the business. I make it in the business. This is kind of what happens after the business, or my time is kind of winding down with wrestling. So in that sense, it has the beginning, the middle, the end, sort of.
So now I want to see how it stacks up against the 30 for 30 or HBO documentary, Rob.
So sadly, I think, and it's probably, I will say the 30 for 30 and HBO are definitely more polished. I think because the 30 for 30s are weird because they're just randomly produced, and it's all different directors. It's all different people putting stories together, where probably some of these A&E ones, you're going to have the same directors. They just pull the clips together, get a bunch of interview stuff. So it's kind of if you will, a sausage factory of documentaries, right? They have their large set of people they want to do a biography on. All right, let's do one. Let's do the same kind of format, kind of, right? All the orders similar, where the 30 for 30 a lot of times does it's more of a story that's being told, right? They could do flashbacks, flash forwards, kind of all around the it's definitely more polished, especially for 30 for 30. HBO obviously being known for its stellar content, period. The Andre the Giant one, it was no different. It was phenomenal. Think about it. It's documentary. There's so many good HBO documentaries, so they know what they're doing, right? But sadly, Eric, the A&E ones, they're the content and the focus and who they're focusing on, or a band or whatever it is, they're great, but I just don't think they're quite as polished as maybe some of the other ones are.
In their defense, they're far more accessible.
And that's a good next thing, because we're not looking for 10 hours of Ken Burns wrestling. or
I
anything
would
like
watch
that.
the hell out of that.
Or anything like that. So let's go to Andrew. I want to ask, let's use that accessibility as someone who's not that into documentary. Did you find this one easy enough or enjoyable enough, or accessible? We'll use the word accessible enough, to get into it enough.
I mean, it was accessible, but I had a big issue with it. Felt like looking at like a bar chart or something. So like, here's his all the coverage of his early career, and here's the coverage of his later career. Like, you're going into, oh, he now he's in Portland, then he's in Georgia, and then his later career. If you look it up, it's like, wow, they skipped over a lot of stuff, not just the acting stuff like I was talking about, but like there were more comebacks than to the wrestling than they showed on there. Like, he left more times and he came back more times. So it was like, to me, if you just wanted it almost should have been 2 episodes. Like, they could have done, this is the early Rowdy, and then have another one that actually showed the late Rowdy. So it was accessible. It felt like you hit a point where then all of a sudden, okay, boom, 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 we're rushing through. Yeah. And sadly, that it felt like all of a sudden,
Factory.
Yeah, it was all of a sudden like, oh, and here's his last interview while he was alive, and I'm like, weren't we just talking about like 2005, like a second ago? Like, where'd the 10 years go?
Yeah, that was very noticeable with long lead up through like how he's going to make it. He gets to the point where he's pretty much made it, and it's like skip to the end. So, and just talk about how banged up and how hurt he had been. But then they did bring it back a little bit because they wanted to talk about how he dealt with a lot of his issues with physical and mental stuff going on, and trying to do stand up and talk about these stories that he has. And also, that is something that Mick Foley has turned to doing. So they included that as well in their documentary on him, because that's just a lot of these wrestlers, they go through a lot, and this is a way for them to cope and to share everything and still feel relevant, even though the prime of their career as a wrestler is far been left behind. Kind of makes me think of the Mickey Rourke movie, The Wrestler, too.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, if you don't I just like a scene from that movie is just when they like show up to the festival and they just sit at their tables, and they have a couple people coming through. It's kind of depressing. So I mean, I'm glad that people like Roddy were able to find a different outlet and still find meaning and enjoyment in their life.
Nice. So yeah, as we're talking about the A&E sausage factory and it being somewhat maybe it's like the starter kit for documentary watching. Like, it's like the sampler. It's like the Whitman sampler of documentaries, right? Like, you get like a little taste of each thing.
Now I'm getting hungry.
It's a little nugget, some nougat in this one, a little caramel in this one.
You know what? You're probably right, because again, I watch so many I don't really watch. I listen to a lot of documentaries.
True.
And so they'll be playing, and so I might have stumbled across these many times, but then I get to the end and it's like, I want to know more. And so then I go looking for like the Ken Burns or the 5-hour version of it.
So yeah, and I mean, there's something to be said for that, right? Like, it could get you interested in wanting to know more. It could leave you feeling like you didn't get something, but they always try to follow, like you kind of said, they had that formula of, we see the rises and the falls. So we saw rises and falls of Roddy Piper, and we saw changes in him. And my last big question for you guys is, after having watched this kind of introduction, dipping our toes into the life of Roddy Piper, do you see him in a new light? Does does this change your opinion of him, maybe as an actor or just as a person in general? But I am interested to hear if it had changed your opinion about his acting, because I know that's come up a lot in our last two movies, of course.
Yeah, I'd say it changes my opinion drastically from where I was, last month. And I'll keep it short because I know I've been talking a lot. But I have a greater appreciation because he is someone who was incredibly smart. He knew that wrestling cannot possibly be sustainable. There is an end to what your body is able to do, and what do you do when you reach that point? And so he was thinking about it. So I can have a real appreciation that it wasn't just, hey, I want to go out to Hollywood and make $1 million or whatever. It was, what can I do to continue to provide for my family and have meaning to my life?
And going off of that, for me, what it showed me was, you see all these documentaries and biographies about celebrities, and what's one thing that's very common is certain family members don't want to talk about them because they say, oh, well, we had a rough time with them. But that was not the case with Roddy. I mean, obviously there were things that they didn't go into, but
with Ric Flair.
Yeah, but his kids, his wife, they were willing to talk, and they said, he protected us like no other. And you don't really see that with celebrity documentaries. Usually it's, oh, well, yeah, then he wouldn't be around, and he when he'd smack me and da da da. But he was definitely a family man, and I didn't know that about him.
So I loved Roddy Piper. I still love Roddy Piper, and I will always love Roddy Piper. So this didn't change anything for me. It just solidified my love for one Roddy Piper.
That's why we have this theme. And here we are with this theme because Rob loves Roddy Piper. So yeah, was there anything else anyone wanted to state, get out of their system, talk about with Roddy Piper, or biography or documentaries or anything before we get to the scoring?
This is your chance, Mike. Go bash some more Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan, you can go to hell. He's a terrible person.
Frogtown. No.
Yeah, you go to Frogtown.
All right. Well then, at that, give me your best, give me your worst. Let me get the scoreboard up here. We'll take a look and see what we got from let's go. Let's preview, of course. Let's preview what went on last time, which was, but not limited to, right now in our standings, Rob has a 38 with Hell Comes to Frogtown, and Andrew has a 31 with They Live. So we want to see where this one stacks up. I didn't put the whole title up there. Did you see? I just said biography Roddy Piper, because otherwise I would have had to make the font smaller, and then I was like, I don't really want to do that, so I had to shorten it because it is the longest title ever. But anyways, do your best, do your worst. Show me what you got. Let's put these scores up in here. Rarity, theme, and enjoyment. What you got?
All right. So rarity, I'm going to go with a 4. Because I feel like a biography on Roddy Piper is a rare thing to look up, but it is A&E, so it's not a biography that was like hidden, tucked away. So I'll go 4 there. Theme, I mean, come on, it's all about him. It's about the man. Give him a 5. Now, enjoyment, I had a tough time with this, because if this was just a documentary about whatever, even let's say it was a documentary about a sports team that I love, I would score it low, because I'm just not that into documentaries, biographies. But I feel like it brought enough of the heart of Rowdy Piper that I did enjoy it more, even though it wasn't very balanced on the early versus late career. I'm gonna go with a 4 on it, because I feel like it did a good job of pulling me in.
All right. So Rarity, it's accessible in a lot of places. It's A&E. I was aware that there were a series of biographies for just WWE Legends and stuff. So, I'm going to give it a 3 for Rarity. Theme, 1. Just a 1.
You Hogan. No.
There was too much Hogan.
Hogan.
Don't get me started again. So theme, yeah, spot on. No questions there. Enjoyment. I watched it 4 or 5 times, so I must have enjoyed it. But the things that bothered me were the things that were left out, things that were glossed over, or even, I would say, again, the health aspects, the mental health aspects, were kind of just downplayed, and for that I have to go a 4 here.
All right. That's a score of
I'm not good.
12?
Oh, it's just 1 less than that. Yes, 12. I'm like trying to re-add it where I could just do the. Anyways, in my brain, I'm like trying to do. So far, I have already beat the score for St. Elmo's Fire. So we're in the clear on that. We're in the clear. Rob could not score it, and it still has a higher score than St. Elmo's Fire. So
You're back good on the winning team.
I'm back in this.
All right. So Rarity, I don't think it's too rare, but I think Roddy Piper, he's, as much as we're going to spend a total of 4 episodes on one person, he's not the most famous of wrestlers, right? So for them to have a documentary on him completely, it's pretty unique. So I'm gonna give it a 3. Not super rare. It's A&E, right? It's not like some rare like production company that you never find. So I'll give it a 3. Theme, I'll give it a 50 because it's Roddy Piper.
Done.
So
I'm fine with that. Are you guys fine with letting that ride? Because
so of course, theme for Roddy Piper 5, and then enjoyment. Do I need to say more? I'm giving it a 4. It was really good. I agree with Andrew and Mike that there were things that I think they missed, could have done better. But overall, I think it was if anything, it was a good intro into Roddy Piper. Now, if somebody could make a deep dive Roddy Piper biography, that'd be a 5 right there. And that'd be a 5 in rarity too. But nobody's made that yet.
So if I Mike just changes
what's going on here?
Because he realized
I didn't see nothing, brother.
That if his score stayed what it was, then it would be 1 point below Rob's score for Hell Comes to Frogtown.
I changed my rarity score for one reason, and that is the fact that there really isn't a plethora of Roddy Piper documentaries. This is kind of it, right? You can find other little clips and interviews, but this is, to my knowledge, the only cohesive documentary on him. So there you go.
I don't like these. I don't like these retroactively changed.
I'm gonna
scores.
ask you this.
Saying
I'm gonna
that.
ask you guys this. If so Mike did change it after the fact. I mean, I'm all for him changing it, of course, because this is my pick, and that does put me tied for first place. However, he did change it after the fact. So Andrew and Rob, and I know what Rob's gonna say, but maybe we make Andrew the deciding factor. But I do want to say, if we are tied, no one is technically winning. And Mike still has to go. But in the event of a tie, if you guys are all cool with letting this one ride, me and Rob will enter the ring and we will wear a chain collar connection thing and we will figure out who actually who wins this this round. But no, what do you guys think of that? We could go head to head in some sort of thing if it does end up a winning tie. If
we could do a head to head in Galaga, and whoever gets the highest score.
we know who.
But then you win, Rob. But then you win.
I played it at the Galloping Ghost when I was down there.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, what do we make?
Flip of a coin?
Jagoda, our do we let Mike change it?
I mean,
after the fact,
as long as we're still on our scoring thing, I'd say all right.
All right. So this is what we'll do. We're tied. So that means here I'm gonna pop it on the next. Well, we'll pop onto the next slide because this is controversial. But we have. I don't think we've ever talked about what happens in the event of a tie.
Coin flip.
Do we do a coin flip or do we do some sort of test of? Yeah, like, you know, we have to do some sort of, you know, feats of strength. Feats of strength. Airing
Let's rumble.
Whatever it might be. We'll have to figure that out because, I mean, of course, Mike still has the opportunity to sweep in and knock us all out, which I do want. We should definitely hear what he has to say about his pick. But yeah, we'll have to ponder this one in case it does turn out a tie.
The highest I can get is 33 on my pick. I guarantee that.
Don't be so hard on yourself here. It might not be okay. So yeah, let's get into what tell us about your pick, Mike.
Okay. So we visited his entire life and the start of his film career. And if you listen to our previous episodes, you'll find how I felt about his acting ability. And so I really wanted to know, you know, how did he grow as an actor? I didn't want to do something that was around that same time period or even the early 90s. I wanted to really stretch that out. So I went to a film that is pretty rare, I would say. It came towards the end of his life. It was in 2012 is when it was released. It was an indie film from Canada, and it's called Clear Lake. So I really wanted to watch this one to get an idea of how did he grow as an actor, if he did at all. So should be interesting. And it's the film's available on YouTube for free to stream. There might be other places, I'm not certain. It's pretty small. Yeah.
Well, we'll see if it could beat the Tide. See, I'm actually kind of happy how this went down because it was kind of like I Rowdy Roddy Pipered my way into that tie.
You know what it was? It was like the Montreal screw job.
Ooh.
Can we say that on here? No.
I say in the event of a tie, it goes to the one right below those two.
Indeed, that could be a thing where they cancel each other out.
No.
No, but I just like how it kind of happened. Like, I was almost, I was like gonna be pinned, and then Mike was like my old tag team partner, and he came in and he like knocked the ref out and like changed the situation, and then I
'Cause
won the match.
what the ref didn't see didn't happen. We even
Exactly.
talk about that guy. That guy's amazing.
Yes. All right. So we'll have to see what goes down with the rest of this, because it could be a as JR would say, wasn't that his name? JR, he'd say this is gonna be a slobber knocker.
Slobber knocker.
He's broken in half.
But
My God.
right. But if you're gonna see me and Rob hit each other with chairs or chain each other up by the dog collar match or whatever we're gonna decide to figure out this tie, you're definitely gonna have to check out the next episode where we watch Mike's Clear Lake, and meet us next time on the Rare Cuts Media Society.